Welcome to the Cup of Joe Wrestling Show.
Cup of Joe Wrestling Show?
With Joey Harris. A podcast for the wrestling fan on the go. So take your favorite beverage of choice and join Joey as he takes a look at some of the biggest shows on the WWE Network.
From makeshift studios deep in the heart of stately Maine Manor, this is the Cup of Joe Wrestling Show, and I am your host, Joey Harris. You can follow the show on Twitter at Cup of Joe Pod. You can email the show at cupofjoewrestlingshow@gmail.com. And folks, right here at the start, I just want to say rest in peace to Scott Hall. He passed away after I had recorded the last show, and my condolences to his family, friends, and fans, and just his mannerisms, with the toothpick and the way that he would come down the entrance and all of that. I have found myself doing that so many times in my life, and just looking on Twitter and Facebook and different things, I see that I am not alone on that. So condolences to his family and his friends and his fans. And also get well Big E, a bad landing from a suplex and a broken neck. That's just not good. We just wish him well and a full and speedy recovery. And today, folks, we continue on Project 45, and we have landed in the year 1986 as we look at the superstars on the Superstation from Jim Crockett Promotions and TBS. 1986, I had just turned 8, and this was the year that I found two pro teams to root for, as the Bears won my heart and the Super Bowl, and the Red Sox broke my heart in the World Series. My parents had announced that they were going to have another baby, and my grandmother passed away in September of that year. But we go back to February of 1986, and Superstars on the Superstation was shown on TBS on February the 7th, 1986. It was recorded February 2nd, 1986, from the Omni in Atlanta, Georgia. There were 10,000 in attendance, and the show did a 3.2 rating on TBS. Some dark matches before the event. Ron Bass and the Barbarian fought to a draw. Baron von Raschke defeated the Italian Stallion, and Jimmy Valiant defeated Arn Anderson by disqualification. This is presented in the most complete form possible due to technical difficulties. Magnum TA welcomes us to the Superstars on the Superstation and introduces his co-host for the event, Linda Curry, and I have no idea who she is or why Magnum TA is not wrestling, but what can you do? Magnum says that they have a lot of great wrestling on the way and a special interview with his friends Dusty Rhodes and Willie Nelson. Linda is ecstatic and so excited to be here. She says she is becoming a fan fast tonight. She asks him if he would rather be wrestling than sitting up there with her in a tux. He says he feels pretty comfortable sitting up there with her. They throw it to David Crockett and Tony Schiavone at ringside. Instead, it shows Tom Miller welcoming us to the Superstars on the Superstation. David and Tony then welcome us to Superstars on the Superstation. They talk about the dream matches that we're going to see tonight that fans have written in and requested. We start off with an NWA World Tag Team Championship match. The Rock and Roll Express, Ricky Morton and Robert Gibson, versus the Midnight Express, Dennis Condrey and Bobby Eaton with Jim Cornette. The Rock and Roll Express come out to a good ovation. The music having to be dubbed out hurt it though. The Midnight Express jump the Rock and Roll as they are being introduced. Gibson thrown to the outside and then Morton thrown down to the ground. Midnight Express double team Morton and knock him back down to the ground. They then pick Morton up and throw him to the outside. Gibson up on the apron and they slingshot him back into the ring. The Midnight Express double team Gibson on the inside. Midnight Express go over to slingshot Morton from the apron, but he instead slingshots both out to the floor to a big pop. Rock and Roll go out after them and start to beat the Midnight Express on the floor. All four men in the ring. Midnight Express corner whipped into each other. Condrey hip locked out of the corner. Eaton monkey flipped out of the corner. The Midnight Express then atomic dropped into each other. Midnight Express rolled to the outside to regroup with Cornette. Eaton back in with Gibson. They lock up. Drive to the corner. They break and Eaton slaps Gibson, who slaps Eaton back. A rock and roll chant goes out. They lock up again. Back to the corner. Eaton tries to hip toss Gibson out of the corner, but Gibson blocks it. He blocks it a second time, switches with Eaton, and hip tosses Eaton out of the corner. He then takes Eaton over with the head scissors. Morton tagged in, Morton with the kick to the ribs of Eaton. He then goes over and punches Condrey, who tries to come in, but gets cut off by referee Randy Anderson while Morton drops a fist on Eaton. Morton with a leg lock on Eaton. Eaton grabs Morton's hair and then punches him to get out of the move. Eaton then throws Morton out to the floor. Eaton goes out after him, while the referee is tied up with Gibson, who would come in to complain about Eaton, back and forth out on the concrete. Morton backdrops Eaton on the concrete. Morton then kicks Eaton. They are trading blows in the corner. Gibson and Condrey in the ring fighting, and Anderson is trying to get them out. Morton and Eaton finally back in the ring. Condrey and Gibson both tagged in. Gibson with a leg trip to Condrey, into a leg lock. Morton then tagged in. He does a leg drop onto the legs of Condrey. Morton with the leg lock and tags Gibson in. He drops a knee on the leg of Condrey. He gets a 1 count. Gibson goes back to the leg lock. Condrey grabs Gibson by the head and tries to break the hold, but Anderson makes him let go. Condrey then rakes Gibson's eyes to break the hold. Morton tagged in. He and Gibson do a double knee breaker move to Condrey and then go and punch Eaton in the corner. Morton then goes back to the leg lock on Condrey. A Jim Cornette chant goes out. Condrey gets back to his feet and hits Morton with some right hands. Condrey with an Irish whip and a knee to Morton. Condrey with an Irish whip and a knee to Morton. However, Condrey is hurt and Morton grabs the leg of Condrey and tags Gibson in. Gibson comes over the top rope with a boot to the injured knee of Condrey. Gibson drops an elbow on the knee and goes back to the leg lock. Morton tagged in. He hits a fist drop to Condrey's knee from the second rope. Morton drives the leg of Condrey backwards. Eaton tagged in. He and Morton lock up and drive back to the corner. Break, and Eaton starts slapping Morton and chopping him in the mouth. Eaton with an Irish whip, and Morton ducks a back elbow attempt and comes back with a suplex on Eaton. Morton drops a knee on Eaton's back. Gibson tagged in. Gibson gets a 1 count. Gibson with a front face lock, but Eaton gets to the rope to break the hold. Eaton with an Irish whip, ducks a clothesline attempt, and goes for a drop kick, but Eaton grabs his legs. Eaton slingshots Gibson into a Condrey clothesline. Good teamwork by the Midnight Express. Condrey tagged in. He drops an elbow on Gibson. Condrey choking Gibson on the second rope. Morton tries to come in, but gets cut off by Anderson. Condrey also comes over to Anderson, allowing Eaton to continue choking Gibson on the ropes. Cornette comes over and starts whipping Gibson with his belt. Condrey then gets a 2 count. He hits Gibson in the head with a punch and tags Eaton in. Eaton with a snapmare. Eaton hits the Alabama Jam to Gibson. All 4 men in now, as Morton has come in after Eaton, allowing Condrey to attack Gibson on the mat. Eaton gets a 2 count on Gibson. Condrey tagged in. Condrey with an Irish whip, and Gibson reverses an abdominal stretch. Condrey with a hip toss to get out of the move. Condrey with a slap to Gibson, and Eaton tagged in. Condrey with the Irish whip, and Eaton hits a back elbow. Eaton with a snapmare. Eaton with a top rope knee drop. Condrey tagged in. Condrey hits a big clothesline on Gibson. Gets a 2 count. Gibson trying to tag. Eaton tagged in and punches Morton off of the apron. Morton comes in and Anderson tries to get him out, so the Midnight Express double-team Gibson. Cornette comes over and whips Gibson up against the ropes again. Eaton with a snapmare. Gets another 2 count. Eaton goes for a headlock. Gibson pulling hair to try to get out of the move, but Anderson makes him stop. Condrey tagged in and hits Gibson on the head with a shot. Condrey with a headlock. Gibson is trying to come back and the crowd starts to make some noise to help him. Gibson makes it to his feet, still in the headlock. Gibson almost out of the hold and Condrey pulls the hair to get him back down to the mat. Morton comes in and Anderson grabs him to get him back out, and Anderson comes off the top rope with an elbow drop. Condrey gets another 2 count. Condrey goes back to the headlock. Gibson gets back to his feet. He punches Condrey to get out of the hold. Condrey with a knee to the stomach of Gibson. Condrey with an Irish whip, puts his head down, and Gibson goes towards the wrong corner before collapsing. Condrey with an eye rake to Gibson before tagging Eaton in. Eaton stops Gibson from making the tag by gouging his eyes and kicking Gibson in the stomach. Condrey tagged back in. He drops a knee on Gibson. He drops another knee and chokes Gibson, but stops before the 5 count. Condrey runs Gibson into Eaton's knee in the corner before tagging Eaton in. Eaton with a front face lock. Eaton with a swinging neck breaker. He gets a 2 count. Eaton goes back to the headlock. Gibson is struggling to get back to his feet. He does, but Eaton tags Condrey in. Double Irish whip, and Gibson comes back to try to sunset flip Eaton, who is still holding on to Condrey. Morton comes in to drop kick Condrey, allowing Gibson to complete the sunset flip. Gibson gets a 2 count, but Condrey is the legal man. He punches Gibson. Gibson punches back. Condrey hits a backbreaker. Eaton tagged in. He goes up top, and the Midnight Express do the rocket launcher, but Gibson moves out of the way. Morton tagged in, and he comes in and cleans house. He takes turns hitting both members of the Midnight Express. He Irish whips Eaton into Condrey. Then another Irish whip and a crossbody to Eaton. He goes for the pin, but Gibson and Condrey have both come in, and Anderson becomes distracted trying to get them out of the ring. The Rock and Roll Express punched Condrey and hit a double drop kick to Eaton, who falls backwards into Anderson to knock him out. They double drop kick Condrey out of the ring. Cornette gets up on the ring apron, and Morton slingshots him inside. Gibson gets the racket and hits Eaton with it. Morton gets the belt, and David Crockett tells Morton to whip Cornette like a dog in a great moment. He goes to hit Cornette with the belt when Condrey hits Morton from behind with the racket, as Tom Miller announces 3 minutes remaining. Condrey drags Gibson to the outside, and Cornette puts Eaton on top of Morton. Cornette goes out and gets Anderson, who comes back and counts the pin. New NWA World Tag Team Champions. Gibson complaining to Anderson about what happened, as Tony and David look at a replay. Magnum and Linda talk about the last match. The Road Warriors, Hawk and Animal with Paul Ellering versus Ivan and Nikita Koloff. The Russians are booed heavily when they are introduced. The Road Warriors are cheered heavily. A USA chant goes out. The bell rings. Nikita and Animal start. They lock up. Back to the corner. Nikita drives his shoulder into Animal several times. Then a forearm to Animal. Animal reverses a corner whip. Nikita gets his boot up on the charge end. Nikita goes to the second rope. He comes off with the double axe handle, but gets caught in midair by Animal. Animal has Nikita in a bear hug. Nikita gouges Animal's eyes to get out of the move. Nikita with a scoop slam. Nikita goes to drop an elbow, but Animal moves. Animal with a scoop slam. Animal misses a leg drop when Nikita moves. Both back up and looking at each other. Hawk tagged in. He and Nikita lock up and push off. Another lock up and push off. Hawk blocks a right hand and hits a right of his own. Nikita comes back with a shot to Hawk's stomach. Nikita with a front face lock, and Ivan tagged in. Ivan hits Hawk with a double axe handle from the top rope. Ivan with a throat thrust. Hawk reverses a corner whip, but misses the charge when Ivan moves. Ivan goes back up top, but Hawk catches him with a shot to the stomach as he is coming off. Hawk with a shoulder breaker to Ivan. Hawk with an Irish whip and a big boot to Ivan. Animal tagged in. He military presses Ivan. He then slams him down. Hawk tagged back in and hits Ivan with a fist drop. He gets a 2 count. Hawk with a headbutt. Ivan wanders over to the wrong corner and Animal hits him with a shot. Hawk then hits Ivan with a shot to knock him down. Hawk with a fist to Ivan to knock him against the ropes. Another fist to Ivan against the ropes and Animal tagged back in. Ivan reverses an Irish whip but drops his head early and Animal kicks him in the head. Animal drops a fist on Ivan and gets a 2 count as Baron von Raschke comes to ringside. Hawk tagged in and Animal holds Ivan for Hawk to come off the second rope and hit him with a fist drop. Hawk with a shot and a shoulder block to Ivan. Hawk rushes Ivan, who sidesteps him and then pushes Hawk into Nikita and referee Tommy Young. Nikita tagged in. Nikita with a scoop slam. He gets a 2 count. Hawk driven to the heel's corner. Young gets Nikita off of Ivan, allowing Ivan to choke Hawk with the chain. Nikita snapmares Hawk out of the corner. Nikita misses an elbow drop when Hawk moves. Ivan tagged in. Ivan with a leg drop on Hawk. He gets a 2 count. Ivan with a swinging neck breaker on Hawk. That gets a 2 count. Ivan with a corner whip. Nikita tagged in. Double Irish whip and back elbows. Nikita hits Animal with an elbow on the apron. Animal starts to come in but gets cut off by Young. The Russians get Hawk back in their corner and choke him some more with the chain. Nikita then goes back and shoves Animal again, creating a diversion. Ivan then tagged in. Ivan punching Hawk in the midsection in the corner. Ivan with forearms to Hawk's back. Hawk with a shot. Ivan comes back with a knee lift. Ivan with an Irish whip. Hawk ducks a clothesline attempt and hits Ivan with a shoulder block. He gets a 1 count, but Nikita breaks up the pin attempt. All 4 men in now. Hawk distracted by Animal and Nikita. Von Raschke comes in and knocks Hawk down and drops an elbow on him. Ivan gets a 2 count. Hawk with a scoop slam. Hawk drops a fist. Hawk goes for the ropes to come off, but gets tripped by Nikita. Von Raschke comes in and he and Ivan hit Hawk with their forearms to get disqualified. All men fighting in the ring now. Nikita throws Animal to the outside. Ellering comes in and Nikita attacks him. Hawk throws to the outside and all 3 attacking Ellering. Nikita goes over and grabs the chain. Nikita and Ivan go to hit Ellering with the chain, but the Road Warriors pull him to safety and the Russians fall to the outside. All 4 brawling on the outside now. Hawk has the chain and all of them are back in the ring. Hawk with the chain wrapped around his fist and hits Nikita with it. Animal Irish whips Ivan into Hawk in the chain. Ellering then does the same with Von Raschke. Tommy Young declares the Road Warriors the winner by disqualification. A USA chant goes out again. Tony and David watch a replay of the finish. Magnum interviews race car driver Benny Parsons. BP says he's a fan and his son is a great Magnum TA fan. BP says he has a new car this year, an Oldsmobile, and he is looking forward to the season. He says that Bill Elliott had a superior car the previous year, and there was nothing that they could do with him. The GM cars this year all have new cars, new sheet metal, and he thinks they can do something with them this year. Magnum says that he always wanted to race, but to race with 10 to 15 other guys would make him nervous. BP says it's just like wrestling. You start out in the minor leagues and work your way up to it. Magnum says sometime he wouldn't mind getting into one of those race cars and riding around the track. BP says on February the 23rd in Richmond, he is commenting on a race on TBS, and if Magnum comes up, BP will take him around the track. Magnum thanks Parsons for stopping by. Magnum then throws it to an interview with Willie Nelson and Dusty Rhodes that Tony Schiavone conducted. They are on a movie set. Willie says it's a remake of the classic John Wayne movie Stagecoach, and it's a good Western, and he and Dusty think it's time for some of those films to come back. Tony asks Dusty about his longtime love and friendship with Willie Nelson, and Dusty says that's a fact. Dusty says growing up in Austin, Texas, this is where he was born and raised. His dad was a plumber, and he always loved going to wrestling and going to hear music. He remembers seeing Willie Nelson at a place called Big Gills. Dusty says him and some kids from Johnson High School went out and in the back because they weren't old enough to get in. They had a 6-pack of beer listening to Willie Nelson before it was fashionable. Willie was his man for a long time. Then their paths crossed on the road a lot, and they enjoy a lot of the same things and entertaining a lot of the same people. Dusty thinks it's important that the relationship between people like him and Willie is that people know that there ain't nothing fancy about what they do. They were just doing it really well before it was fashionable. Dusty says when he first started wrestling, he went to a 20-minute draw with Reggie Parks, and he got $25 and he had to go back to Austin. He said he bought a 6-pack of beer and headed back to Austin and listened to the Bill Max show, and he would play Willie Nelson songs. It helps get him through the night and down the road. Even though he only sees Willie once or twice a year, he respects him and he loves Willie Nelson. Tony asks Willie about Dusty trying to walk on the stage and try to take over the show. What about that? Willie says, have you ever tried to stop Dusty Rhodes? He says Dusty has become a regular at their Summit New Year's Eve show, and he looks forward to it every year. He says he does get to see him in Atlanta and other places around the country. They travel and they entertain, so they run across each other occasionally. Tony asks Willie about his music plans for the future. Willie says he has a new album coming out called Living in the Promised Land. He then says some lyrics to the title track to finish the interview. National Heavyweight Championship match. Dusty Rhodes with Baby Doll versus Tully Blanchard with J.J. Dillon. Referee Tommy Young checks both men before the match. The bell rings. They circle each other. Blanchard goes for Rhodes' leg. They start to lock up and then back off. They then do lock up. Get to the ropes. They break clean. When they come back from commercial break, Blanchard is back in the corner and begging off from Rhodes. Baby Doll is at ringside screaming at Blanchard. Rhodes and Blanchard lock up. Rhodes with a single leg takedown. Rhodes has a leg hold on. He then drops an elbow on Blanchard. Rhodes now on top of Blanchard with the leg hold still on. Blanchard gets a chin lock on Rhodes to try to get him from applying the hold. Rhodes gets a 1 count when Blanchard's shoulder falls to the mat, but Blanchard comes back up and goes back to the chin lock. Rhodes goes back to his feet, but still has the leg lock on Blanchard. The crowd is getting behind Rhodes. He then drops another elbow on the leg. Blanchard hitting Rhodes in the head with forearms to try to break the hold. Rhodes then gets up and puts Blanchard in the figure 4. The crowd goes crazy and Blanchard trying desperately to get to the ropes. He does get to the ropes. Young makes Rhodes break the hold. Blanchard crawls out to the apron and Rhodes stomps on his knee. Blanchard crawls out to the floor. JJ helps him off of the apron and Blanchard just collapses to the floor. Blanchard grabbing his right leg. Blanchard back up to his feet, but conferring with JJ as Young tries to keep Rhodes away so that he can count. Blanchard starts to try to get up on the apron, but he is in too much pain. Blanchard finally gets back in the ring, but he is limping and begging off. He keeps hobbling away from Rhodes and tries to get out of the ring again, but Rhodes grabs his leg before he can get out. Rhodes drags him back to the center of the ring. Rhodes goes for a spinning toe hold. Blanchard makes it to the ropes. Blanchard then kicks Rhodes off. Rhodes goes back to the spinning toe hold. He then drops an elbow on Blanchard's knee. Rhodes has been focused on that one body part the whole night. The crowd is yelling, "Break it," to Rhodes. Wow. Rhodes gets up, drags Blanchard over to the apron, and slams Blanchard's knee down on it. Rhodes then drags Blanchard over to the ring post and slams Blanchard's knee against it. Rhodes then chops Blanchard. He then hits Blanchard's face with an elbow. Blanchard trying to get away. Rhodes hits him with another elbow to the top of the head, and Rhodes then starts to go up top. He dives off and hits Blanchard with an elbow smash, but Rhodes comes off wrong and lands on his own injured left leg. He's on the apron writhing in pain, and Baby Doll comes over to check on him. Blanchard comes over and drops a knee on Rhodes' injured leg. He then drops another knee to the leg, and Rhodes cries out in pain. Blanchard working over the injured leg. He applies a leg lock to Rhodes. He gets a 1 count when Rhodes' shoulders go down. Then another 1 count, and Blanchard is trying to force Rhodes' shoulders down. Rhodes with an irate to get out of the hole. Tom Miller announces that there are 10 minutes remaining in the match. Both men get back to their feet, but Blanchard sweeps the legs to knock Rhodes back down. Blanchard then drops another knee on Rhodes' leg. Blanchard then applies a leg lock to Rhodes and also gets a 1 count. Then he gets a 2 count, and Rhodes is in a tremendous amount of pain. Blanchard then goes backwards and really cranks on the hold. He gets another 2 count. Fans screaming, "Come on, Dusty," as Blanchard gets another 2 count. Baby Doll and the fans screaming that Blanchard has Rhodes' trunk, and Tommy Young goes to check. Young forces Blanchard to break the hold. Blanchard gets Rhodes in the injured leg. Rhodes falls to the mat. Blanchard gets Rhodes in the figure 4. Rhodes fighting the pain. He is holding himself up by his arms so he doesn't get pinned. Young asks Rhodes if he wants to give up, and Rhodes pushes Young down. Rhodes goes back to his back, and Blanchard gets a 2 count. Rhodes trying to roll over so that he can reverse the move. He does reverse it, and Blanchard trying to get to the ropes. JJ pulls Blanchard to the ropes when Young isn't looking. Young makes Rhodes break the hold. Both men still down on the mat. Blanchard back up first and drops an elbow on Rhodes' head. Blanchard drives Rhodes back to a corner. Rhodes reverses a corner whip, and Blanchard comes back with a crossbody off the turnbuckle. But Rhodes catches him. Rhodes hits a backbreaker. Rhodes hits a belly-to-belly suplex on Blanchard, but JJ has Young distracted by the ropes. Rhodes gets up to see what happened to Young, and Blanchard hits a high knee to Rhodes' back. Rhodes falls to the outside. Blanchard crawls out to the apron to punch Rhodes as he was trying to get back in. He then drives Rhodes headfirst into the apron. Rhodes finally gets back to the ring. Blanchard attacking Rhodes as Miller announces 5 minutes left in the match. They go back and forth in the corner. Rhodes with several shots to Blanchard. A flurry of jabs by Rhodes, and Blanchard is starting to go down. A right hand by Rhodes knocks Blanchard to the ground. Blanchard crawls out to the apron. Rhodes grabs him and suplexes Blanchard back inside. He gets a 2 count, but JJ puts Blanchard's leg on the ropes. The fans are screaming at Young what JJ did. Rhodes goes after JJ. Blanchard attacks Rhodes through the ropes as he is going after JJ. Blanchard then kicks Rhodes while he is on his knees by the barricade. Blanchard with an elbow to Rhodes' head. Blanchard then Irish whips Rhodes into the apron. Blanchard rolls Rhodes back into the ring. Blanchard then drops a knee on Rhodes from the second rope. He tries to pin Rhodes, but he is too close to the ropes. Blanchard picks Rhodes up as Miller announces that 4 minutes remain. Blanchard punches Rhodes. A second punch, and Rhodes is reeling in one corner. A series of left hands to Rhodes, and Rhodes goes down in the corner. Blanchard goes for a snapmare. Rhodes reverses it in a backslide attempt. He gets Blanchard down, but his leg is hanging through the ropes. Back up, Blanchard takes a wild swing that Rhodes ducks, and Rhodes hits an atomic drop as 3 minutes remain. Blanchard collapses with his face up against the second turnbuckle. Rhodes picks Blanchard up and punches him. He then headbutts Blanchard. Blanchard goes down to one knee. Rhodes goes to a 3-point stance and hits Blanchard hard, and Blanchard goes down. Rhodes with a slap to knock Blanchard back down. Rhodes gets a 2 count. Rhodes with the right hand as 2 minutes remain. Blanchard staggering up against the ropes. Rhodes drops an elbow on Blanchard's head in the corner. Another elbow and a chop to Blanchard in the corner. Rhodes with a corner whip. He then hits the bionic elbow and Blanchard falls down. Rhodes chops Blanchard in the corner. Rhodes pushes Young away and JJ pulls Rhodes down by the leg and Blanchard gets a 2 count. Rhodes goes out after JJ. Miller announces 1 minute left. Blanchard comes over to get Rhodes, who slaps Blanchard. Back in the ring, Rhodes hits Blanchard with a right hand. Another left and right to Blanchard. Another left and right knocks Blanchard down. Rhodes with an elbow. Blanchard responds with a knee. Miller says 30 seconds left. Rhodes with a side headlock. Blanchard pushes off. Rhodes comes back. Blanchard drops down. Blanchard tries for a crossbody, but Rhodes catches him. Rhodes rolls Blanchard over in a Boston Crab. Young checking on Blanchard and the bell rings. The match is a draw. JJ gets in the ring and Rhodes goes after him. Blanchard catches Rhodes with a shot to the knee. Blanchard hits a pile driver on Rhodes. JJ grabs the national title and gives it to Blanchard, who raises it high. Blanchard and JJ leave, and Baby Doll and Tommy Young check on Rhodes. Magnum TA interviews Jim Crockett Jr. Mr. Crockett talks about the bunkhouse stampede. Crockett then talks about the Crockett Cup. The cup is then shown. They then show Bob Johnson, the executive vice president of the Superdome, talking about wanting the Crockett Cup for the Superdome. Magnum then thanks Jim Crockett for coming. Tony Schiavone is at ringside with Gaylord Perry. Perry says that it's been a great night so far and has been very entertaining. Perry talks about checking in with the Braves. He and Tony talk about the wrestlers and how athletic they are. NWA World's Heavyweight Championship match. Ric Flair versus Ron Garvin. The sound goes out briefly when Flair is introduced. He is sporting the 10 pounds of gold here, but it wouldn't be too long before he would get the big gold belt. Tommy Young checks both wrestlers. He then delivers the instructions and holds the title up high. The bell rings and Garvin immediately goes after Flair. They get to a corner. Flair reverses and chops Garvin in the corner. Garvin slaps Flair back in the chest. Flair backing up. They lock up again. Get to the ropes. Garvin with a side headlock. Flair pushes off. Garvin comes back with a shoulder block. Garvin off the ropes. Flair drops down. Garvin coming back. Flair leapfrogs. Garvin slaps Flair's chest to knock him down. Flair rolls to the outside to regroup. He is angry. Flair getting on the fans at ringside as he gets up on the apron. Flair gets back in the ring. They lock up again. Garvin goes back to the side headlock. They drive back to a corner and Flair drives his shoulder into Garvin's midsection. He then chops Garvin in the chest. He then hits a forearm to Garvin's back, and Garvin comes back with a slap to the chest. He hits a series of chops to Flair, driving him back. He then headbutts Flair, who falls down. Garvin punches Flair in the face as he is trying to get up. He gets back up, and Garvin slapping him in the chest. He then punches Flair with his right hand to knock him back down to the mat. Garvin goes for a pin and gets a 1 count. Flair backs away and begs off. He makes Young get Garvin away before he will come out of the corner. They lock up and Garvin twists Flair's wrist. Flair grabs Garvin by the throat. He drives him back to the opposite corner. Flair then chops Garvin. Garvin comes back with a right hand punch. Flair choking Garvin. Garvin gouging at Flair's eyes. Young trying to separate the two of them. Garvin with a series of hard right hand slaps to Flair. Then a punch and a slap to Flair. Flair pushing Garvin back by the face. Garvin grabs Flair by the nose. Flair falls to his knees. He rips at Flair's nose and Flair rolls away and he is livid. Young gets between them and Garvin calmly moves him out of the way. Again, Young comes in and tries to count Flair to come out of the corner. Flair stalling not to come out and meet Garvin again. Flair back to his feet and begging off. They lock up and Flair with a knee to the stomach of Garvin. He then chops Garvin in the corner. Garvin slapping Flair back. Flair grabbing Garvin by the throat. They battle for position in the corner. Garvin slaps him hard several times. Garvin with a corner whip and backdrops Flair out of the corner. Flair in pain. He is begging off from Garvin. Garvin with a wrist lock. He puts the hand down and stomps on it a couple of times. He turns Flair over and slaps him. He slaps him several times, and Flair gets up and drives his shoulder into Garvin's midsection again. Flair with a forearm to Garvin as Young tries to break them up. Garvin comes back with a right hand. Flair falls out of the ring and down to the floor. Garvin starts to go after him, but is restrained by Young. Garvin keeps coming over to break the count because he doesn't want a count-out victory. Flair rolls back in. Garvin stomps Flair as soon as he gets back in the ring. He grabs Flair and chops him again. He chops him several times. He corner whips Flair, who slams into the turnbuckle sternum first. Garvin grabs Flair with a wrist lock that drives Flair to the mat on his back. He twists the arm up. Flair in pain but fighting it. Someone yells out, "Break his arm," to Garvin. Young asking Flair if he wants to give up, but he doesn't. Garvin twisting the arm backwards. Someone in the crowd yelling out, "Twist it, Ronnie, twist it." Vicious crowd here tonight. Flair back to his feet. Garvin goes to twist the arm again, but Flair puts his knee in the back of Garvin to break the hold. He then chops Garvin up against the ropes. Flair punching Garvin. Flair grabs Garvin and throws him out of the ring. Garvin lands on his feet and gets right back up on the apron and into the ring. Flair grabs him and drives Garvin into the corner and chops him. He chops Garvin several times. Garvin reverses it and starts punching Flair in the corner. He slaps his chest several times. He punches Flair, and the momentum drives Flair over the top rope and out to the floor. Young tells Tony and David that it was the momentum and not a disqualification. Young makes Garvin get back so that he can count Flair. Flair struggling to get back to his feet. Flair gets to his feet and back to the apron. He crawls through the ropes. Garvin grabs him as soon as he gets through the ropes. Garvin with an Irish whip and a sleeper to Flair. Flair is fighting it, but slowly starts to fade. Flair spins around and hits a belly-to-back suplex on Garvin. Both men down on the mat and a double count going. Flair up to his feet first. He double stomps Garvin on the stomach. Garvin in a tremendous amount of pain on the mat. Flair with a suplex. He gets a 2 count. Flair drops a knee on Garvin's head. Flair then woos the crowd. He sits on Garvin to pin him while also slapping Garvin. He gets another 2 count. He chokes Garvin, who reverses it and has Flair by the hair. He slaps Flair. He punches him several times, several forearms to Garvin's head. He then sits down on Flair's chest and gets a 2 count. He and Flair get up, and Flair with a knee to Garvin's chest. Flair with several chops to Garvin's chest. Garvin chopping Flair back. They trade chops back and forth in the ring. Garvin with several punches to Flair. He finally knocks Flair to the ground. Garvin gets a 2 count. Flair gets to a corner and begs off. Garvin grabs Flair and headbutts him several times. Garvin with a corner whip, and Flair goes upside down and falls inside the ring. Garvin punches Flair and gets him in the front face lock. Flair goes for a suplex. Garvin blocks it. He blocks it a second time. Garvin delivers a suplex. He gets a 2 count. Another 2 count. Garvin picks Flair up by the hair. He goes to punch Flair, but Flair punches him first. Flair with a side headlock takeover. Garvin hooks Flair in a leg scissors. Flair rolls out on top of Garvin. Garvin bridges out of the hold. Garvin spins around and goes for a backslide. He gets the backslide. Gets a 2 count. They lock up again. Back to a corner, and Flair chops Garvin. Flair with an Irish whip. Garvin ducks a clothesline attempt and comes back with a crossbody. He gets another 2 count. Garvin punches Flair. Flair with a takedown. Garvin drives Flair back to the corner and chops him. He hits him several times. Flair corner whipped. He goes up and over the apron, goes up top, and actually jumps off, but Garvin catches him with a shot to the midsection as he comes off. Garvin with a small package for a 2 count. Flair with a kick to the midsection. Garvin with a side headlock. Flair pushes off. Garvin ducks a forearm shot, and Flair responds with a kick and a chop to knock Garvin down. He gets a 2 count. Flair goes over to Young to complain and gets rolled up by Garvin, but as he does, Young accidentally gets taken out and lands outside of the ring. Garvin has Flair rolled up, but no one to count the pin. Flair eventually kicks out and chops Garvin. Garvin reverses an Irish whip. He punches Flair out. He goes and covers him again as Young is shown getting back to his feet. Garvin tries to help Young get into the ring, and Flair hits him with a high knee from behind and covers him. Garvin gets his foot on the rope, but Young doesn't see it. David and Tony try to tell Young that Garvin's foot was on the ropes, and Flair screams at them to shut up. Magnum, TA, and Linda wrap things up, and sign off from the Omni. We then get our end credits. Final thoughts. 1986 is rolling right along for JCP. They would head towards the Crockett Cup and a very successful Great American Bash tour as the year goes along until the fall when Magnum has his car accident. You can follow me on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at TheJoeyHarris. If you like the show, please leave a review on iTunes or Apple Podcasts. I would really appreciate it. Thank you for joining me this week. This is Joey saying so long from stately Maine Manor.
The Cup of Joe Wrestling Show is a production of Baby Kangaroo Media.